Hello, hi everyone. My name is Isaac Thomas, and I am here to tell you a very interesting story. Now, when I was in my sixth and seventh standard, I grew up and studied in a Catholic school. So, in the sixth standard, we had Ramayana as an epic, and in my seventh standard, we had Mahabharata. And Mahabharata is one of the most interesting books I have read. So many characters, and there is a lot of violence in it. So one of my favorite characters is Bhim in it, even though right now the mainstream media is always talking about Arjun and Karn, and basically there is a fandom that is always at war with each other. But Bhim has a very important role in the epic, and he's like the second main protagonist in the. According to me, as when I was reading it, I just felt it that way. After Arjun, Bhim has a huge prominence in the whole epic. Now there is this one instance where Bhim tears apart Dushasan's chest and drinks his blood and smears himself with his blood, and basically that's an oath he took when Dushasan basically was stripping Draupadi of her sari, and that is a very violent moment in the epic. And when the soldiers, the opposition Kaurava soldiers, see Bhim in that form, smeared with Dushasan's blood and in that engrossed in that act, they panic. It's basically like the Shiva seeing that whole form of Bhim in that ferocious form. Now, why I'm saying all this is because since my childhood, Hindu mythology has been a very fascinating read for me, and even in my childhood days, TV media would be there would be a lot of mythological series that would be coming up, and I would be watching them. So recently, I came across a very interesting story that hasn't been covered by. I haven't seen it on television as such, or I haven't read it before. And that was there was this one line somewhere that read that Shiva destroyed Tripura. And I was like, Tripura is an Indian state, a northeastern state, and Shiva destroyed Tripura. And Tripura usually doesn't come mainstream like Uttar Pradesh does, or Madhya Pradesh does, or Bihar does. So I was like, what exactly did Shiva actually destroy Tripura? And I started researching about it, and I came across something really interesting. Now, the story kind of goes like this. Like thousands of years ago, like every mythological story, thousands of years ago, there were like three brothers, the son of demon king Tarka. They perform austerities towards Brahma, for Brahma, and they stand in meditation, suffer through all of it, and Brahma, grants them a boon. They first ask for immortality. Brahma says no, that cannot happen. So they ask for something else, and this is what they ask: three cities, one of iron, one of silver, one of gold. Basically, they wanted to rule heaven, earth, and the underworld, and the cities would be built as iron, silver, and gold. Now, the impossible condition they put is because there is again, because they cannot be granted immortality, they find a loophole. Now, what happens is they say that the cities would wander separately through the cosmos and would align only once in a great span of time. Only then they could be destroyed, and that too by a single arrow. Now, now Brahma has given these three demons, a boon that they will have three cities, one made of iron, one made of gold, and one made of silver. And because there are three cities, it's called Tripura. Now, because they have this boon that these three cities will keep wandering, keep floating, and once in 1,000 years they will align together, and that's the only time you can destroy those cities. So what happens is, because they are demons, eventually they start troubling the beings around them. They start oppressing the worlds, and the gods can perhaps counter individual problems, but they cannot destroy the entire system. Why? Because for that to happen, those three cities need to align, and that will happen in, like, say, once in 1,000 years. So what happens is they all go to Shiva, the supreme god. So the gods go to Shiva and tell him that this is a problem and we need a resolution for it. Now, among gods, there is always something like, you need to respect the boon of the other god. So Shiva basically waits. And the reason is, again, he, even if, he waits for those 1,000 years to pass by, and he doesn't want to waste his energy or waste his power on premature action or just act. So he waits for the boon to fulfill, like, in those 1,000 years, the cities align and they come together. But again, to penetrate through those three cities, you need that much power. Your arrow needs to have that much power that, it penetrates those three cities. Now, Shiva, being a supreme god, has that power. He can wield that power. So once Shiva takes the mantle to destroy these three cities, destroy Tripura and these three demons, something really interesting happens, and that is the whole universe aligns itself to the goal of Shiva. And how it happens is the earth becomes Shiva's chariot. The sun and the moon becomes the wheel of those chariots. Brahma, the god who gave the boon, become the charioteer, and Mount Meru becomes the bow. There's a serpent called Vasuki in Hindu mythology. It becomes the bowstring, and Vishnu becomes the arrow, and Agni becomes the placing point of the arrow. Now, the meaning behind it is the cosmos align itself and concentrate themselves in Shiva's act for this very reason, that Tripura is the disordered and chaotic world, and to bring order in that world and to destroy that disorder, the cosmos align itself in a godly act. So again, usually in mythology, what happens is there's war that ensures, and there is a beheading, and for years or for days the war keeps going on, and eventually the good wins over evil. Here it's very simple. So as per what the boon permits, in that 1,000 years, in that cosmic moment when the three cities align together, Shiva shoots the arrow. And again, it's not separate beheading. In a very interconnected way, the arrow penetrates those three cities, and the three cities get destroyed, and the asuras in it, and those three demons in it, and everyone in that city gets destroyed and burned. And that's it. Very simple. And at that particular point, Shiva becomes Tripura Tanka. Basically, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Shiva becomes Tripura Tanka. Yeah. So, but then this is a very nice, very interesting story. But I also realized there is a psychological angle to it. So when I say the story of Shiva destroying Tripura has a psychological angle, we can keep saying and speaking and drafting theories after theories, and this video could go very long. And I want this video to be short, so let's tackle this one thing, and that is the fear of being ordinary through this story of Tripura. A lot of men, women have dreams. A young man would want to join MMA and become an MMA fighter. A young woman would want to start a boutique, her own business, or join the army. A man in his 40s would want to take a risk and maybe make a movie, be a director or do something creative. Now, what happens is, or it could be something really small. Someone who is really obese wants to lean down, get six-pack abs. Someone who is an extrovert wants to just sit down and write a book. But every person who has an ambition, who wants to succeed or wants to fulfill his dream, go through these three problems. Now, these three problems are categorized into three buckets. Now, I would say, like the story of Tripura had three cities: the Iron City, the Silver City, and the Golden City. The iron city is the physical world. In the physical world, the man or the person goes through this problem, and that is, I am too tired. I will try this tomorrow, or I will do this tomorrow. I will start tomorrow. That is the problem that he faces, or he or she faces in the physical world. The second problem comes from the silver city, and that is the emotional world. That is the fear of failing. That is where a person feels, what if I try and I fail? The third problem is the more complex one, and that is the mental world, where the person says, I need more preparation, I need more strategy, I need more alignment. Now, Shiva knows that all these three problems are in one single root. So the person with dreams will think something like this, that I am facing fear, laziness, and indecision separately, and it's so chaotic. Life is so hard, but Shiva knows that all these things have one single root, and the root is the fear of knowing that if one's greatness is imagined or if it's actually real. Now, the person stays stuck for a long period in this state in his head or in her head, and eventually life aligns these three cities, and you know how it happens. Another birthday passes, another someone who was perhaps, according to them, not so talented, but through sheer persistence achieves what they couldn't. And even the time they wasted in their head also becomes visible. And that's when, in that precise moment, Shiva hits them with the arrow. Not to kill them, but to kill their fantasy. The person realizes that they were not preserving their dream, they were not preserving their dreams, but they were basically preserving their fantasy of being exceptional. Now, what Shiva does is he breaks that fantasy, makes the person realize that greatness cannot be achieved without risking ordinariness. You have to be ordinary first. Leave those ordinary phases to become exceptional. Now, if you have watched the video till now, you will ask this question. Because we have known the story of Tripura, we have understood the psychological angle, but what is the solution? How do I, a person with dreams, destroy the Tripura in my head? How do I destroy those three cities that keep bringing chaos in my head? Understand first what Shiva did. Earth becomes the chariot, the sun and the moon becomes the wheel, Brahma becomes the charioteer, Mount Meru becomes the bow, serpent Vasuki becomes the bowstring, and Vishnu becomes the arrow, and Agni becomes the glazing point. Now, what you can do here is first root yourself in reality. Understand your circumstances. Understand. First, root yourself. That is your earth becoming the chariot. Now, put yourself in motion. Build a rhythm. And that's where the sun and the moon become the wheels. Let God guide you. That's where Brahma becomes the charioteer. Let Mount Meru become your bow. Now, what are mountains? What are mountains famous for? And that is to be still, to be sturdy in their purpose. Like just be there. And that is you build a routine, you build a system, and you stick with it. Be firm in that routine. And then have a purpose that's bigger than your own self. And that's where serpent Vasuki becomes the bowstring and Vishnu becomes your arrow. And burn in that purpose. Work hard and burn in that purpose. And that's where you get your glazing tip. And once you have this whole thing ready, be Shiva, take that shot. And that short could be anything from writing a book to doing your first push up, to going for that first run, to making that investment, to saving that 1 rupee that starts the whole loop of saving. The very first step is the first shot that you take to destroy your Tripura. Now, the Holy Bible explains this whole framework in a very simplistic manner when Jesus, in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 11, verse 17, says this: Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and a divided household falls. Every person who dreams of greatness but lives in comfort, every person who dreams of excellence but fears failure, is the divided household Jesus is talking about. Now, in another Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, verse 30, Jesus says this: Love your God with all your heart, mind, body, and soul. Heart, mind, body, and soul. All in alignment, aiming towards one goal. Rings a bell, right? I will end this with a powerful poem written by William Ernest Henley, and that is: Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul.